all the tasks that you do during the day for this business, how many of those tasks are worth $1,000 an hour? And that's when the light bulb kicked off. I was like, all right, anything under that $1,000 an hour, I shouldn't be doing. I should work to have somebody else do those things so that I can focus on those $1,000 an hour things.
Who's going to make your decisions? Are your desires and your dreams making your decisions, or is your current reality making your decisions? Because you can keep all your excuses. You can keep your alibis. That's why people are so defensive with their alibis. As Napoleon Hill says, they're a creature of your own making. What's going on, SDR Nation? Here is your host and brother from another mother, Emanuele, here with the man himself, Mr. Mike Riley. What's going on, Riley?
Not a whole lot, man. I've been working on some cool stuff. Looking at my company here and I don't know, running some numbers on it. So that's what I've been working on just today. So yeah, it's been good. What about you? So
when you get that opportunity, when somebody else is thinking about doing the same, what's the first thing you do?
Back of the napkin math. How many units are there? What's their revenue? What do their expenses look like? And then how would it fit in my model? Because I know pretty much my profit margins and where my expenses go per property. So really, I'm just looking for the high dollar properties. And with the sale would come with some smaller properties that don't make as much, but it's just weighing out the pros and cons of both.
Got it. And then do you get to get rid of properties that don't make sense right away, or how does that work?
Typically there's that contract in place, but there's a cost associated with those like lower level properties that's included in the contract. And there's a due diligence period too. Typically there's like 2 payments. There's the payment when the sale closes, but then there's another payment at the end of usually like a year or 2. So then that's just based on the performance of the company or performance of those contracts, those houses that were initially agreed upon. So just looking at a lot of different things and trying to talk to a lot of different people that are smarter than me too.
Yeah, there's not a lot of those. So I'm curious. Right.
Disagree.
What you're talking. Love that. Man, I'm excited. Next week, I get to fly up to Boston. We're doing our boardroom event. And then Mike and I are finishing our certification for hypnosis training. And that's been a big thing. It's kind of like part of the reason we chose the topic for the show today. Because what I would like to talk about is what are 5 philosophies, ways of thinking that you and I and Mike, because Mike is also overarching in some of these, have embraced over the last couple of years that have led to a drastic change in the way that we go about life. And so I'm very excited to, first of all, I always love going to the boardroom events. I get to see my people. We get to play some golf, maybe some pickleball. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I get to see you. I get to see Mike, hopefully the babies. So that's always exciting. And then on the personal side, I shared this with you earlier, was my nephew's birthday this week, and he turned 3. And E, being Uncle E, bought him 600 rounds of little Nerf bullets. And I bought him about 10 to 12 pistols of all kinds of sizes and shapes. And so his mom hates me, but that's okay. I love them. And he was so excited. So it was so fun. So if you have a 3 or 4-year-old and you don't invite me to their birthday, just know that I'm going to show up with lots of ammunition. There is little Nerf bullets now all over their house. But again, that's what's fun to me. So it's just going to be Riley and I today. So I would love to just roll right into the show. And I would love to open it with the biggest philosophy that's really made a difference in my life, which is the concept that life happens for me and never to me, right? And there's an element to that of extreme ownership as well. If you guys read the book, you know what I'm talking about. But what I mean by that is that it's very, very easy, especially as an ambitious person, especially as a driven person, as you are working on changing your life, things are going to happen. And the way you look at those things happening and the stories that you create within your head about what's going on, it's highly going to impact the way that life feels to you. And I think that is the biggest thing that I've seen with people as they go for a bigger version of themselves. Sometimes they're carrying with them some of these limitations and stories. And part of it is extreme ownership of the fact that, like, look, ultimately, you're the only one responsible for your life. Nobody can ruin your day. Nobody can sabotage you. Nobody can do anything. It's always you. All right? And so it's that concept of anything that happens, and I have it tattooed on my finger too. Amor fati, right? Which is like, love your fate. Like whatever is going on, understand that it is happening for you and it's always in your best interest. And obviously when some things are painful, this gets harder to do, right? Like, hey, my kid is sick. It's happening for you. Well, what do you mean? Somebody passed away. It's happening for you. Like, that cannot be it, right? But it is. Every little aspect of every little part of your life, it's always happening for your highest and best. And that is probably one of the things that has really, really, really helped me with the end of my marriage and with a lot of other things, right? It's really finding peace in the concept that I know that is happening for me and that something better is going to come. Because that's just how the universe works.
A couple episodes you talked, when you talked about your story, and you had a $12,000 mortgage payment due when COVID hit, the month COVID hit. Mm-hmm. And that lesson right there. And we get taught this lesson all the time too. Like every year, multiple times. How did you get through that when you had that big note due, and how did you apply that philosophy then?
Well, just everything is perfect. This is happening for me. Because that's the thing that I find fascinating about personal development, mindset work, and everything else, which is something that Ram Dass used to say. If you think you found enlightenment, go spend a week with your family, because those people are going to trigger you, and then you see how enlightened you actually are, right? But it's the same thing. You can say that you're a peaceful person. You can say you're somebody that believes in mindset, has a positive mindset, until stuff like this happens.
There was this is a secondhand story, probably a third-hand story, but I was watching one of my favorite shows. It's on Netflix. It's about PGA Tour players. And there's a South American, I believe he's from Colombia. His name's Camilo Villegas. And I remember seeing him when I was like, 10, 11 years old at a pro tournament. But anyways, a couple of years ago, he and his wife lost their daughter. I believe she was under the age of 2. It was like some rare disease that she caught. I'm not exactly sure the entire story, but a lot of people and players on the PGA Tour and wives, they all rallied around the Villegas family, and they started a foundation and everything too. And during the show, there was another wife or mom that came up to Camilo Villegas's wife and just said, like, look, I just don't know how you did it. I don't know how you are here today. I feel like if I lost one of my children, I would die. Like I wouldn't live anymore. And it was beautiful what she said. She said, you know what? I thought the same thing too, but then everybody rallied around me, and I know now my life purpose here, and I know what my daughter would want, and she would want me to go and celebrate her purpose. And her purpose on this earth was to shed more light to this rare disease. And so, the more light gets shed on that rare disease, the more lives that are saved. And so it's like, she kind of viewed it as like her daughter was a sacrifice for more people, which is pretty beautiful. And that's really, really, really difficult to think about inside that moment when you just lost a child. But you're 100% right. It's like she took extreme ownership of the situation and said, I get to choose how I react to this. And I choose to let this happen for me, not to me.
Yeah. Yeah, man, because there's always the facts, and then there's what we make them mean. And so it's understanding that what you make something mean, it's what creates your story. And so if you can embrace the fact that life is happening for you and you find that silver lining, I'm not saying that you're going to be free of suffering, because again, suffering is an option, that you can see things, and then it depends on the story. Because if you believe in God or a higher force, you have to believe that was part of his plan, right? So that's the first one. Again, guys, we're going a little bit deep today. I miss doing shows like this, so I do hope you guys find lots of value. The next one is day one philosophy. And what I mean by that is that today is the worst that you're ever going to be. And as I was thinking about this show, there was a concept that I learned a couple years ago. Actually, Mike was there when I learned this. Is that 4 stages of learning. Anytime you start doing something, you're going to be unconsciously incompetent. And what I mean by that is you don't even know how bad you are or something. I started dancing salsa recently. I love dancing. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to be that bad at salsa. I started dancing salsa. I am like an elephant in a China store, right? And I didn't even know how incompetent I was. From that, you go to phase 2, which you become consciously incompetent. Where you're like, hey, I'm not that good at this. These are all the ways I'm going to get better. The problem with most people is that that's when you stop. The moment your experience is not what you thought it was going to be, you stop. The moment you actually consciously become aware of what it takes for you to become competent, you quit. And so nothing changes. Because how many of us have tried to learn something, and the moment we realize that it's hard to learn something, we stop. Then I also want to ask you, when was the last time that you learned something? Because learning is just a muscle. So if some of you haven't learned anything since college, the fact that you think you're going to pick up something and learn it quickly just shows you how unconsciously incompetent you are. But then the beautiful thing happens, you go to stage 3, which is when you become consciously competent. You start being like, okay, I can do some of these steps, I can do some of these turns. I can't do those yet, right? So you have a level of, once again, extreme ownership, right? Do you understand, like, hey, I see where I'm getting better. I see where I can take ownership of myself and master this part of the skill. So if in this area of business you're having a hard time doing sales, this is that, right? You realize as you're doing sales calls, you become consciously aware that, hey, I'm good at this part of the sales call, not so much here. This is where I'm going to consciously focus on. And then the beauty is once you get to those 10,000 hours, you become unconsciously competent, which is what the tennis players call the flow state, where you're like, get to something, you get to a ball, you get to a thing, you hit a golf ball, whatever that is, and you're like, oh my God, that was amazing. I don't even know how it happened. I just don't know it. It just, you got to master it. But the only way, for me at least, right? I'm going to speak for me. The only way I find comfort in the 4 stages of learning is in embracing the day one philosophy. Is in understanding as I'm starting something new, I know that today is the worst I'm going to ever be at it. And I also know that tomorrow I'm going to be better. And the day after I'm going to be better. And I sure as shit know that a month from now I'm going to be better. And as long as I keep putting one foot in front of the other, and the faster I move from unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent, and then up from there, I know that that's when life is going to start changing. The only difference is that I don't quit.
That's it right there. 2 like very easy examples I see people do all the time. First one is analyzing a bunch of deals and saying there's no good deals out there. You're looking to buy a property, analyzing a bunch. I can't find a good one. I can't find a good one. I can't find a good one. You just keep analyzing deals. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep talking to more people. Keep putting one foot in the front of the other. You know, I hear all the time, I'm not a numbers person. I'm not good with numbers. Well, you just haven't spent enough time with numbers. And if you're quitting now, that's okay. It just means you really didn't want the end result to begin with if you quit. So keep analyzing deals. If you're looking for properties right now, just keep doing it. Don't stop. Do it every day. Look at more properties. Talk to more people. Talk about the new market that may be coming up. And then the second example is, like you mentioned it a little bit, you're starting a co-hosting business, or maybe you're growing a co-hosting business and all your leads have come from referrals and you've never had to sell anybody anything. And now maybe you just left your W-2, or maybe you're just starting out and you actually have to go out and prospect and go find the right people that you want to work with. I hear all the time, I'm not good at sales. It's like, well, it's not really sales. It's finding the right person that has the right need that you can give them the right product for. And again, it's doing it day after day, and just understanding, like what you said, is today's the worst I'm going to be at something. And then you'll start to feel confident. I felt that way at the beginning too of when I started co-hosting, I was like, man, where am I going to find co-hosting properties? Who's going to want to work with me? And then got my first one, started to get a little bit more confident. And now it's like I turn down more opportunities than I take. And it's just because the amount of hours I've put in. and just understanding I'm not perfect at it, but I'll be better tomorrow if I keep trying.
I love that. I also think in the day one philosophy for me, there's also the concept of falling in love with things that are hard, right? Like the moment because now I like to be good. And up until this philosophy really took a hold of me, I used to be really discouraged once I realized consciously how incompetent I was at doing something. Because you don't want to look stupid. You don't want to feel a certain kind of way, right? And yet what I realized is that anybody that is anybody in any field can remember that moment. I like talking to people. I like selling. I was still absolutely terrible when I started. And all I focused on is the fact that like, I know if I fall in love, when I fall in love with doing the hard things, life always pays me. Always, 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 always.
I used to think about this a lot. I don't as much anymore because it's unconscious. But when I was first starting this, I thought about a little circle, and that circle was like my confidence zone, like my comfort zone. Really, it was like I know this stuff. I knew tennis really well. I knew tech pretty well. Didn't know real estate at all. So that was just outside of my comfort zone. And then when I started trying the things that are outside of my comfort zone and were aligned with my goals, I started like, dang, I kind of like living outside my comfort zone. I like putting offers on properties. I like getting these properties, I like picking up the phone and calling some, like, this is actually kind of cool, and like you said, it's like falling in love with doing those hard things and like what's outside that circle, that you can get a little buzz from. Chase that buzz.
100%. As Mike Sugar just calling me.
Decline.
I saw his name pop up, Mike Sugar. And it's funny that he just called me now because the next point was going to be something that him and I have worked on since knowing each other, which is the power of language. So it's understanding that one, your concept of yourself, you're never going to exceed that. And understanding and becoming obsessed with the language in how you speak to yourself about yourself, because you're always listening. You want to say that again? How you speak to yourself about yourself because you're always listening. So one of the things that I talk about a lot when I do speaking gigs is your self-image, is your self-talk in alignment with what you want? So if Mike got a transcript at the end of the day of all of your thoughts and the way that you talked about yourself to yourself that day, is the transcript in alignment with what you say you want? And then becoming obsessed with spotting out words that show you that up until now there's been a discongruency between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And what I mean by that, the ifs, the tries, right? As Yoda used to say, do or do not, there is no try. And it's also the concept that anytime you say, well, I will do something, I will be something, it's a confession to yourself that you don't think you are yet. And how often have you guys met somebody and you're like, hey, I'm just trying to do this co-hosting thing. Like, you're trying or you're doing? Well, I think this is going to work for me. You think or you know? I'm going to have to do this. You have to or you get to? I'm going, I will. And so as you're listening to this, do this exercise. Say your goal and say, oh, I'm going to build a property management business, or I will. Doesn't have a different energy?
100%, man. I relate this back to when I was playing tennis in high school, and really in middle school, high school, I was top 100 in the country, and during practice and at all the tournaments, at that age, you wanted to cuss just like every other word. You wanted to say the F word. You wanted to just any like fun word you could say, you wanted to say it, right? But you couldn't. And your coaches would make you run if you said it. And and now the folks that I work with, and you do this for me, Mike does this for me too. Anytime we use a language of, I'd hope to, or I'd like to, or I'm trying to. The other thing that just drives me nuts is, I'm going to get between 5 and 10 properties this year. Like, which one? Are you going to get 5? Are you going to get 10? Are you going to get 6? Are you just going to hope? Maybe. I don't know. It's like, make that decision. How many properties are you going to get? And those are the cuss words I think around STR Secrets is the non-definitive language that I'm hoping to, I'd like to. And it's very common. It's very common in personal development too. Folks who are trying to do bigger things, they don't want to disappoint themselves. But once you finally make that decision, trying is have the intention to fail. Like, say you're going to do it and you will.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just leaving the door open.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's what most of you are doing. The next one that I would love for you to talk on is the concept of time versus money.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite ones. I mean, I've told this story a bunch. 2019, I did 114 nights in a hotel, and I was making good money though. Like, I was 26 years old or 25. First big job, I was making $250,000 a year in a sales role, number one rep in the company, doing really well, but I was spending so much time on the road. And I was taking clients out, and I was doing all the things that like a number one rep in the company was doing. I saw the number one rep, and I was like, I'm just going to do what that guy does. And I did that. And then I was like, man, I spent so many hours. Yeah, I made a lot of money, but how can I make more money and spend less time doing it, more time on things I want to do? And so that's when I made the decision to get into real estate. And then after about a year in real estate, I had 3 properties that I owned, and then I think another 2 that I managed. I had a third coming on, and Palmer was about to be born. So Sierra was 8 months pregnant. And that's when we made our first hire. As a virtual assistant, Sean, he's still with me 4 years later. And Mike was the one who pushed me on this. He said, Riley, what's your goal, man? And he knew what my goal was. I needed to reach $20,000 a month by Palmer's first birthday. So I had a year to do that. And he said, all right, you want to reach $20,000 a month. How much do you want to work on the business? I said, probably about 5 hours a week. And so we just did some rough math. There's 4 weeks in a month, typically 5 hours a week. That's 20 hours right there. So I wanted to make $20,000 a month and working 20 hours. That's $1,000 an hour. I've got my calculator out for those of you who are watching this. So he said, all right, all the tasks that you do during the day for this business, how many of those tasks are worth $1,000 an hour? And I pretty much said none of them, except for going out and acquiring more properties, acquiring more clients and networking. And, some other things that were worth $1,000 an hour was being in the hospital with Sierra while Palmer was born, walking the dogs together, spending more time with her, playing golf. I'd pay $1,000. I do pay a lot of money to play golf, and that's when the light bulb kicked off. I was like, all right, anything under that $1,000 an hour, I shouldn't be doing. Somebody else, I should work to have somebody else do those things so that I can focus on those $1,000 an hour things. And it doesn't have to be $1,000 an hour. It could be $100 an hour, $200 an hour, $50 an hour. For those of you that are working W-2s as well, if you're working a 40, 50 hour week, find out what your hourly rate is right now. Like, do the math. Pull out your calculator on your phone and do the math right now on how much you're making per hour. And then do the math on how much you want to be making per hour. And then just work the difference there. It's a concept that I feel like I was enlightened to back then, and I still have to catch myself from doing tasks that are under that rate.
I love that. One of the big questions that I ask people is around this conversation. Ready? What's more important, time or money?
Oh man, no question, time.
Does your decision making show me that time is more important in your life or money is more important in your life?
I'd say the majority time is more important. I mean, it is relative.
Right? Well, that's an interesting question for you to ask yourself, right? As you're listening to this, does my decision making, because I think we all agree, especially those of us that have kids, we all agree that time is more important than money. But yet, you waste your time and you protect your money over and over. And so ask yourself, what's more important? And look at, again, extreme ownership. So all these philosophies you see kind of tie into one another. Because time versus money you have extreme ownership of how you're spending your time. If you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, extreme ownership comes in. Are you going to take them off your plate and give them to somebody else? Or are you just going to say, well, time is more important, but then in reality, you're going to keep protecting your money and wasting your time?
Yeah. And, tactically too, if you're working a W-2 right now, or even if you're not, and you want to, get in better shape, and you're looking at it and you're like, I don't have time to do, like, I don't have time to work out right now. Or even like, I don't have time to work on this business right now and grow my real estate business. It's like, you got the time. It's just making that decision of when you're going to do it. For me, my time for myself is between the hours of 5 a.m. and 6:30. Kids wake up about 6:30. After that, till about 8:30, it's with them. And then from 8:30 to 12:30, it's, time with clients, time growing the business. Sometimes it's playing golf, but we've all got the same time in the day. It's just, when are you going to carve it out? Mike, when he was in the CPA job, he would get there early, but then his lunch, he would always like make calls. Like, he was analyzing deals, making calls. He was a night owl too. When he was trying to get out of the CPA job, he would stay up till 10, 11, midnight making presentations, doing meetups, because he valued that future self of not having to go visit Caden in the hospital or take sick time to go visit Caden in the hospital, so that he could have the life he wanted to live and dreamed of.
Again, guys, who's going to make your decisions? Are your desires and your dreams making your decisions, or is your current reality making your decisions? Because you can keep all your excuses. You can keep your alibis. That's why people are so defensive with their alibis, because they're, as Napoleon Hill says, they're a creature of your own making. They're just like your children. You defend your alibis, your bullshit, your story just as much as you defend your kids, because they are your children. The problem is that you're also the children of your habits. Then the last thing, which is going to tie everything nicely together, is really the one thing that I would say out of all of these, if I was to choose. That would be an interesting question for you at the end of this. Where would you rank them, right? But if I was to choose one of the things, the last point is probably one of the most powerful ones for me, probably head to head with the first one, which is how to make decisions. Because, right, like we always say, change, guys, is easy. Decision, that's a different story. Most of you don't have what you want to have because you haven't made the decision. And so by not making a decision, you find what? Your excuses, right? Because I posted something yesterday from a Napoleon Hill reading, which is a quote that we all are probably very familiar with, but success requires no explanations. Failure permits no alibis. And so as you're listening to this, you're a driven individual. We have no doubt you're spending time with us and we appreciate it. Tuning in here every week, it's not a decision. The decision is that you're going to do it.
There's so many different decisions we have to make throughout the day. And we make them nonstop. Some of them unconsciously, like the decision to eat breakfast, pretty much most of us do, right? The decision to wake up, get out of bed. Like, we make a lot of those decisions on autopilot, but it's a muscle that you have to train, especially when you're making decisions on things that are outside of your little circle, outside of your comfort zone. So what decisions are you making fast and firm? And what are some things that you haven't made a decision on that are just kind of lurking over your head? One thing that I've seen a lot of people do is they've got like tasks lists. So they've got lists of things that they want to do, and they just write them down on a sheet of paper. I'm sure a lot of people listening do this. I used to do this too. And if you knock them out, but then if they creep into the next day, then you just write them down again. And you haven't truly made a decision you're going to do those things yet because you would have done them the day before, right? So what are those things that you're going to make a decision on today? And if it's in alignment with what you want to do, you say yes to that decision. You say yes or no. You can say no. I say no to most things. And then you just figure it out from there, right? If it's in alignment with what you want, you say yes to it, you figure it out from there. Whether it's putting an offer on a house, whether it's you picking up the phone and calling that realtor, or calling that potential client. The more that you do that and make those decisions, the more that decision muscle grows. And then it's kind of like what you talked about earlier. You make conscious decisions, but then it turns into subconscious decisions, unconscious decisions. So things that you don't even have to think about anymore. We don't have to think about brushing our teeth. I mean, some people do, but make that decision. Say yes or no to it, because the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to be better the next day, but you have to do it fast. And it's a muscle that you have to train. And if it doesn't get trained, it'll just get fatter and fatter. I mean, it is what it is, kind of the law of the universe. The more things that you hang out there, the more overwhelmed you can get. So,
and
it creates more anxiety.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. But again, that's all a choice, right? And the decision making can also become something that you become unconsciously competent in. Because the moment your self-image is really dialed in as to who you are, then your decision making is also going to become something unconscious. If you're somebody that is, like, if your self-image says, I'm a diehard vegan, the choice of eating a piece of meat is not even a conscious or unconscious decision. Your body's automatically like, that's not who I am. That's not what I do, right? And the one thing that I can tell you that should bring you peace is that you have become the way you are by applying all these things just unconsciously. So you can change to whatever it is that you want by the same token. So to wrap, Riley, how would you rank them?
Yeah, I mean, making decisions fast, I think, is number one for me. Following that is going to be life happens for you, and extreme ownership. Following that is just going to be the day one philosophy of today's the worst day I'm going to be at anything. And the 4 levels I love. And then lastly, the concept of time and money. Number 4, the concept of time versus money. And then number 5, for me, the power of language. Because I think if you knock out those 4 things, the 5th thing is easy. Like the power of language is pretty simple. When you've made that decision, you understand extreme ownership. You understand today's going to be the worst day you're at anything new. And you understand time is one thing that we can't get back, can't get more of. We can always get more money. We can never create more time or get it back.
Yeah, I love that. I would have ranked them the same.
Sync.
100%. 100%. Yeah. But because it's true, right? Like this kind of was the point of the show for me, is to help people understand that, like, look, man, there's many ways to do things, but there are certain things that are going to help along the way. And for me, the biggest thing is the decision making and the choosing of the story. There's the fact and what it means. And in that space is your peace and your contentment and your enjoyment of what's going on in your life, right? Because if anything that happens, you're like, well, you see, this is bringing me closer to my goal. Or if you say, oh, you see, this is why I can never hit my goal. That shift, that 2 millimeters shift between those 2 ways of thinking is what's going to change your life. Any last minute thoughts, Riley?
No, I think just apply this to your life. It's easy to conceptually talk about these things, but myself included, I'm always looking at these things and coming back to them and catching myself too. And then surrounding yourself with other good people that will catch you and call you out for it as well. And say, hey man, we've been talking about this thing for a long time, or you've been talking about this thing for a long time. Are you going to do it or not? You don't want friends that are going to be like, hey man, it's okay. It's okay you didn't do that. It's okay you still haven't made a decision. You don't want folks like that. You want folks that are going to be like, make a decision. Like either say yes or say no. Like now, stop talking about it. Go do it.
Stop. And so that's where we leave you guys. And so if there is a decision that you've been holding on to and you haven't been making, go after it. Because life is going to change the moment you make a true decision. No more dirty yeses. It's either a yes or it's a no. Ciao, guys.